Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And today on the show, we are diving into the High Republic yet again to talk about Into the Light by Claudia Gray, the final young adult novel of the High Republic. Say it ain't so, Sarah. Say it ain't so.
And what if I cry a minute into the podcast? And what if I do?
Listener, if you were here for our last conversation on Valiant Vow, you know about the Sarah Cries jar. So put your coin in there.
It's bound to happen. We're talking about the Wookiees today, so we know that I love the Wookiees.
This is true. This is a big one because this book it's got some eggish talk, but really the meat and potatoes of this for you is Kashyyyk, your favorite.
That's right.
Your one true love.
We're hanging out with the Wosher trees, with the Wookiees, with the spider. Aren't there like freaky spiders on Kashyyyk too, with the big bugs?
Yeah, there's a lot of bugs, especially deep down in the forest, like the low levels.
I don't really like the bugs.
Yeah.
I don't really like the bugs, but I'm willing to pretend that they don't exist for the sake of my love for Kashyyyk. But no, I remember us like seeing this cover and then getting the blurb and learning we were going to be Kashyyyk and me being like record scratch stares at camera. What? Say again. And with Reath, that was like match made in heaven, written by Claudia. Stop. And here we are, having read it, about to chat about it.
And we started the YA journey in the High Republic with Claudia Gray. Claudia Gray, also the one who gave us the egg prophecy in Master and Apprentice 2019. So this book is like a big full circle moment for us as High Republic fans podcasting about these books, because it's the culmination of it all in a way.
Yeah, and even as a Star Wars reader, my first book was Bloodline. I think I read Bloodline and then Lost Stars immediately afterwards, and then Catalyst was my first three. I'm pretty sure. But like Claudia is an absolutely integral part of my Star Wars reading journey. And I think, anyone who's reading canon feels that way. And so to see her conclude these characters so long after they were introduced, does it give me hope for Lost Stars too? Sure. But also, is it, the end of an era for sure, both within the High Republic and with these characters for Claudia? Also, yes. And will I cry on this episode today? It's highly possible.
It is highly possible and probable, because we got some deep things to talk about and some sacrifices that have been made. But before we get into that, again, we will be diving full spoilers into our discussion. But first and foremost, we have our independent bookstore of the week from Sarah over in the Chicagoland area. So Sarah, I'm like a newscaster live from Chicago on the scene. It's Sarah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Brad, for passing it over to me. I'm here today to tell you about Loudmouth Books out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And I came across this bookstore and thought they were so interesting. And then I learned more about it and I thought it was even cooler and more interesting. So Loudmouth Books is a newer bookstore. I believe they were founded in 2023, so pretty new. And they are a Black, queer, woman-owned independent bookstore in Indianapolis dedicated to highlighting banned books and uplifting the work of marginalized authors. And they seem amazing. And their founder is none other than author and Indianapolis native Leah Johnson. And if you've heard her name before, it's maybe because you've seen the cover for You Should See Me in a Crown, which it has a gorgeous cover, or Rise to the Sun. Those are her YA books, as well as Ellie Engel Saves Herself, which is a middle grade book. Bree Boyd is a Legend, which is her newest book. She's written a bunch of books. You Should See Me in a Crown is the one that stands out to me the most from when I worked at the bookstore. And so when I put two and two together, I was like, this is awesome. But if you go to their website or if you are located in Indianapolis, you should definitely check them out because they've got great lists. Including America Has a Problem, which, yes. And I've seen a bunch of titles on this list that I actually hadn't seen before and was really excited to take a look at. So I'll probably be picking at least one of these up. There are really interesting titles on lists that they have created. They have a great mission and they are totally worth checking out in Indianapolis. But if you're not local there, check out loudmouthindy.com to get books from them, to see their lists, all of that good stuff.
Excellent. Shout out shout out Loudmouth Books in Indianapolis, right near your location.
Like solidly 3. That's a 3 hours. That's a 3-hour drive.
We need a budget here on the pod where we can actually go send you to these locations each time and do like a little video segment of you like browsing the aisles, like in true newscaster fashion.
That might be a dream job. I don't desire to be an influencer, but I do desire to hype up indie bookstores. I loved being a bookseller and I love independent bookstores. So if I could make that my job forever, that'd be really cool.
Maybe in the future we will have that budget, Sarah. And that's why all of you should go check out our Patreon at patreon.com/friends of the force.
That was a terrible shameless plug.
Consider it. But without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Again, we are talking about Into the Light. Full spoilers ahead. So if you're not caught up, I would turn back now, finish the book, come back later. And if you just want to be around for the vibes and the conversation, stay tuned and cry with us.
Yeah, I feel like we have to start this conversation with we talked about it a little bit right up top, but talking about how this is essentially a direct conclusion to 2021's Into the Dark. Like Desryden is back. What? Like he never left. Except he was gone for like 4 years.
Are there people out there who are like, I don't know who that man is, and we were like,
no, that's how I feel. That's how I feel about Kevin Tarr. Actually, get ready for the trials discussion where I'm like Kevin Tarr. Except Mark Thompson calls him Kevin, and respect to Mark Thompson, but I think that is incorrect because I'm the one who determines the names. It's Kevin.
Yeah. Also, like Kevin representation in the Star Wars galaxy.
Right, exactly. Anyway, this is how we also feel about Desryden. It's like, where'd that guy go? And it's like, oh, he's back.
But that's the joyous part of this book is Claudia bringing all those characters who are into the light or into the dark. See, I'm doing it. I'm already mixing up the titles.
You know what? This is the curse of the High Republic in general. Also, I think we have this problem with so many books, but I hope everybody listening knows which one we're talking about, even if we goof it up and don't catch it.
Yeah, I might have introduced the episode as Into the Dark or Into the Light. Maybe I might have to edit that out. Editor, check that. But
oh gosh,
we get all these characters back who spent that first book on the Amaxine station, went through some shit, bringing the Drengir back to life essentially, and cause havoc throughout the galaxy. And it's really cool that they're now all back together in a much different way. They're on quote unquote the same side, and because they're sort of fighting the Nile threat on Kashyyyk, the Drengir threat on Kashyyyk, and so they have to learn to work together despite their differences. But we come out the other side much more hopeful, much more uplifted, which is great.
Yeah, it's really interesting to put these two books together and think about the direct story of these two books in particular, because I feel like there are a bunch of threads that we can follow. Like you can make the Ram Jamaram reading order. You can make the Lula and Zine reading order. You can make the Elzar and Avar and Stellan reading order. You can do all these things, but you can also make like the Reath reading order and like the Reath bookends. And it's so interesting to me how directly these books tie together. You could theoretically just read these two and get a story about the Drengir and about the vessel crew and get a story about Reath. And I think that's really cool. I really like that about these books. And also it's really cool to see everybody grown up a bit. They've all gone through a lot of stuff in between here and there. And to see Reath be a real leader, for him to bring everyone together despite all odds, really, in terms of the personalities of some of these folks, and to be leading a mission like this, like from Reath's first lines of going, you know, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was like Reath preferred the archives over anything else. And for him to now confidently be a leader and someone who's really gone out, I think is really, really great. And I like that these stories bookend like that.
Yeah, totally. And they bookend within the Drengir plot itself, because they unleash that into the galaxy, and here they are closing the book, tying up those loose ends, like, and the way that this book ties up those loose ends, even with the Amaxian station, we learn that the Sith idols that they took were sent back to the station for Snoke and Kylo Ren to eventually find, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that, but you're right.
Like that's a wild connection there, but I love how the book ties those things up, and maybe that's where we can jump to next.
I feel like before we dive into all the specifics about what Into the Light means within the context of this book and diving into each of our characters and main points, we definitely have to talk a little bit about our overall thoughts about this book. We've talked about, what it felt like to see and hear about this book for the first time, how these books go together, Into the Dark and Into the Light. But what did you think overall about Into the Light compared to the book itself, compared to other Claudia books, compared to the High Republic books?
I had a blast.
Yeah.
I had a great time. And that was all I needed to have, that final note of this book being about hope, the whole idea of going into the light despite darkness, right? There's always that pinprick of light, the one lone candle kind of idea. So I think the book resonated with me pretty heavily on those themes, but also the setting, and not just being on Kashyyyk, but learning more about Kashyyyk's lore, learning more about Wookiee Jedis, Reath taking on more of a leadership role, as you mentioned, which was great to just see his growth from start to finish, and also have Claudia really cement his legacy as a character, which I really, really don't think we can overstate enough sometimes, how critical Reath Silas is to this whole end game, and we'll talk even more about it in Trials of the Jedi. I had a great time, and have some moments that made me feel something, which definitely there's a couple of those in this book.
The selfies I was sending you when things were happening.
But overall, I walk away very pleased. Coming off of Tears of the Nameless, which is an insanely high bar to set for any YA book, and is probably my favorite of the High Republic. I try not to compare it to that, because that's just totally peak S tier on its own level type of storytelling that George Mann gave us. Not to say this is any less than that. It's just a different type of story, but one that I still will cherish. And I can't wait to talk about some of the character beats and just some of those tidbits that we learn in the story. There's so many fun things.
Yeah, this book is a gold mine of good stuff, and it's because it's Claudia, and she knows what she's doing, and I think we're getting Claudia, at her best in this book, in terms of the characters and in terms of giving us a lot of new stuff to chew on. And I think she's just really, I think we've walked with these characters for a really long time, and I think we also love them a lot. Like, I think these characters, among a lot of the characters we see in YA often, I'm going to speak for both of us when I would say that, like, characters in this group are among our favorites for sure. And so, yeah, I think this book is great. And I agree with you. Like, Tears of the Nameless is one that was absolutely mind-blowing for both of us. It was so good. And I think that this book, as a conclusion to many of these characters' story, to this, corner of the universe of the High Republic, is pretty strong. It focuses a little bit more on the characters and the plot, and I think that's totally okay, because the characters are who we care about. And I think it gets us where we need to go in the end. And the Drengir haven't been super present lately in the High Republic. They really come back up here. But having them back, I didn't feel like, oh, I need the Nameless now, or I need Marchion now, or any of that stuff. Like, I really enjoyed the story that we got here. So this was a good one for me, and one that I am proudly putting up on my shelf for sure, and one that I will stare at lovingly, thinking about the story of Reath Silas from time to time. Just go look at my shelf and go, good job, guys.
We did it, fam. Important call out there. There's
Reath did it. I did it,
Yeah, totally. An important call out there about the Nameless's absence in this book, because it is a Drengir focused book. The Blight is that larger threat, which is connected to the Nameless, one and the same, ancient heritage, ancient lineage, whatever Reath calls it in Into the Light, or in Tears of the Nameless. But I think I liked that, and I liked that it was more character focused and really out of that larger threat of the Nameless, because we're going to get that in Trials. That's what Trials is all about. Let's take a moment with these characters when Charles is going to have so much to cover. We're not going to get to the depth of what we usually can get in a YA with some of these like side story. I don't want to call them like side stories because they're still pivotal, but these sort of like adventures that we veer off the main path to. And I think that's the strength of the YA, is really digging into those characters, digging into somebody like Reath, like Nan, like Comac, you know, even getting some Azlin perspectives in this book, which was, I think, our first, possibly since Path of Vengeance. I think we got some POVs for Azlin in that book, but that was one of my happiest takeaways from this, was actually getting inside his mind and watching him struggle throughout the book, which was really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially as we've speculated for quite a while, where is he going to end? Is he going to end up the villain? Is he going to end up the hero? And this book is really kind of digging into that internal battle that he's having with himself, which is lovely.
Yeah, and we decided long ago, we kind of figured out long ago, and by we, I mean Brad, figured out long ago that really Azlin is the key to all of this. And so our eye has been on Azlin for so long. So to get so much of him between Tears of the Nameless and this book and then into Trials, I won't like spoil Trials here, but and then into Trials because we know he's among the Luminous Nine. It's really exciting to kind of dive into this character who's so morally ambiguous. And I think some of our morally ambiguous characters fall along traditional lines. Like, I think that Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, is kind of morally ambiguous. Like, I think he's complicated, but he's a bad guy, right? And then somebody like Aphra, she's kind of like morally complicated, but we see her as a hero in her own story, even though she kind of aligns herself with the shadier characters. And I think what's interesting is about Azlin is he touches the dark side. He connects with the dark side, but we don't consider him necessarily a bad guy. He's a former Jedi. He's kind of a good guy somewhere in there. And so digging into his perspective a bit, I thought was really cool. And getting a different perspective from him. Like, we saw him as a younger man, a much younger man in phase 2, but we're getting him even younger with memories in this book, which is not what I expected from him.
Yeah, totally. And maybe this is a good transition point to talking about the title Into the Light, because he very overtly is tied to that specific phrase, which we can get to here in a second. But I think him and the Drengir are sort of the two driving forces of dark on Kashyyyk, which is such a place of light. And so it's like, how do we take those two kind of thing, you know, those balls of chaos, those like enigmas of darkness, and how do we transition them into be something to be something better than what they came there as? Yeah,
and Dr. M. Kampa, but we're not redeeming Dr. M. Kampa here.
Nah, she can eat shit for all I care.
Oh no. Yeah, she's not doing the best things along the way.
Yeah. Take her doctorate away, I tell you. Ain't no way.
Doctorate away. Just M. Kampa from now on. It's over.
Yeah. Yeah, she's doing some bad stuff on Kashyyyk. She's drinking raw milk. She's setting up some robot devices that making the Drengir go crazy. We don't like her.
That's right.
We believe in real science, folks, here on the pod.
We also believe in Drengir redemption, so we therefore must be against Encompass goals.
Yeah, as much as we talk about the Nameless being uwu babies, like the Drengir, I think this book really solidified uwu babies as well. They never done anything wrong.
I mean, kinda.
The whole book, they're just being basically tortured and guided and manipulated by Makampa.
They deserve to eat, but I would rather them not eat Jedi and just tasty sentient meats, you know? And I think they get some Drengir redemption at the end of this, which is nice.
Truly.
It's nice.
I will say that's another fun idea to play with, though. The fact that the Drengir are native plant life, and we are on a place like Kashyyyk, which is so overflowing at the brim with life and nature. And then you have this sort of technological force from Dr. Macampa, who is trying to come in and shape that to her will. And I feel like that's such a classic idea with Star Wars of nature versus technology. That's something that George really liked dabbling in as well. And just it's kind of really interesting putting those two things side by side. Like, how can you use technology and science to bend the will of nature to what you want it to be or what you want it to do? Which in this book, she is after the thorn seed, which we'll talk a little bit about, but there's some ulterior motives there. But going back to the idea of Into the Light, Kashyyyk is so rich with the light side, and I love that the moment Azlin got there, he is immediately feeling like all these mixed emotions about himself and who he is and who he wants to be. And the whole time he's kind of being a pain in everybody's ass and causing the mission to want to go sideways at points. And Reath finally has a breaking moment with him where he says, "You claim to be tied to the thorn seed, but you aren't. You're lost. You've jabbed at all of us in turn during the mission, even Amadeo, trying to manipulate us and sow discord. Really, I think you're looking for a companion in the dark, so you won't be alone any longer. But the only way you'll ever cease being alone is if you again dare to step into the light." So there it is, Into the Light. And the moment I read that, I was like, ooh, bookmark that, because that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
And you alluded to it, but like Azlin's having these memories of when he was last on Kashyyyk as part of his Kresh journey. I think Kresh is how it's pronounced, where Arkoff took him to Kashyyyk. Master Arkoff is a Wookiee as well. And they went to Kashyyyk. Azlin spent a lot of time with the Wookiees. He got to know their culture. He got to celebrate with them and share in the joy of their culture. And we also get some allusions throughout these memories of him dreaming of this young girl who had blonde hair. It says, quote, "her smile urging him onward." He can't quite recall her name or who she was, but clearly there's something in Azlin's past where he maybe once loved. And so when you think about all the years, the 150 years that he has spent in the dark, in fear, being afraid of the nameless, having this thirst for vengeance on his mind at all times, and here he is back in this place that is bringing all these memories back to the surface of who he was, what's been taken away from him, who he maybe could be if he chooses to step into the light. It's a lot for him to handle. And maybe he's coming to terms with the fact that the dark has been his friend when really he has no friends. And he pushes away the people that could be his friends, truly, like Reath, or even like anybody else on this mission.
Yeah, I think that him being able to recall this girl, whether she was another Padawan or a family member or a friend or a romantic interest, we don't really know. But like, you know, he knows that she was there. She was a part of his story, but he doesn't know her anymore. I think really speaks to the level of isolation that he has, because he can remember Arkoff, right? But he can't remember other people who positively impacted his life. And he's certainly probably not thinking of Arkoff often at this point. Only when he's here and kind of being forced to recall these memories. And I think that really just capitalizes upon like the amount of isolation he feels. I think that, you know, signifies that he is so alone that he has forgotten that he was once not alone. He's so stuck in his ways and in the dark, and the dark has, you know, cast him away from connection by, you know, making him unapproachable and him choosing to be unapproachable. So there's a real sadness in his story when we understand a little bit more of him through his memories and recall who he was in phase 2 as well.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to love. You know, the Jedi are taught not to love, not to be attached. But if the High Republic has taught us anything, it's that attachment is actually a strength in a lot of ways.
Like, you know, love is actually a strength, and we just have to love selflessly and not for ourselves or possessively.
Yeah, when love helps to maybe guide and inform your actions as opposed to dictate your actions, right? I think love dictates Anakin's actions. Love guides Reath. Love of his friends, love of Comac. There's all sorts of love. And Azlin mentions the word love to Reath at one point, where when we find out the blight is on Kashyyyk, he says that he thinks the Wookiees, he kind of blames the Wookiees and says, quote, "They thought they could love back the blight, love away the dark. No such thing, not in all the galaxy. Shri Karai Karai." And so he's blatantly pointing out the fallacy in love, and that like, hey, love actually isn't the end all be all. It can't stop the dark. When really we know that love can't ignite the stars. It can be that lone candle to push back. And he has just refuted that idea because of something that's happened.
And it is, in like every single Star Wars story, love is at the core of it. And clearly Azlin has not done his future Star Wars viewing of the next 300 years because it's important. But seriously, he feels that love is not worth it because it is not tangible. And he feels that the Wookiees are foolish for believing in the strength of their community and their emotions and their empathy. And I think that he doesn't know how to walk a mile in someone else's shoes and understand the bigger picture, and that not everything that has to be done in order to end the nameless or achieve a goal is something that is tangible and malicious or physical or violent or any of these things. I think he just fundamentally has trouble understanding that because he is so stuck. And you kind of like pity him for it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, the Wookiees have all of this, like you think about what we've seen of the Wookiees throughout Star Wars. And the one thing that it comes down to every single time is the strength of their communities. Like the Wookiees are people who are connected to their family, who are connected to the people that they live by. Like their culture is so strongly connected, period. And Azlin just doesn't think that it's worth it to be connected like that.
Yeah, it is sad. And even Des and Reath, when they're talking about Azlin, Des says that to die consumed by fear and loneliness is terrible, but to die consumed by hatred, it's even worse.
Yeah.
You know, he's hated the Nameless for decades, over a century. That's no way to live with hate in your heart.
Yeah.
It really is awful. And I feel like Azlin is coming to that realization of how much hatred he has felt because he is in such a place of light, a place where he's had so many joyful memories of a time before hatred. And so this light and dark is battling within him, and he's curious to learn which is the stronger, which will be the victor.
I think it's like we, alongside Reath, right, are really rooting for Azlin. I don't know if everybody's rooting for Azlin. I think there are probably some readers who are like, oh, screw that guy, he's the worst. But maybe I don't want to speak improperly for you, but I think we are rooting for him. We want him to find a balance in his life. We want him. I mean, I was saying a few minutes ago, like, he's somebody who walks with the dark, but I think he's morally ambiguous. I think, you know, the talk of the light being there, I want him to grab it. I want him to push forward with that. And I want him to recognize the power of these, you know, the intangible just isn't there.
Azlin is like a manifestation of our lowest points as human beings. But like, what if that lowest point was essentially your whole life? You know? And he sort of represents like, what happens if you never leave that lowest point? What if you use the pain of that lowest point to continue inflicting pain on others and to use it as an excuse to inflict pain without taking a moment to reflect and learn from it and grow from it? There's this great quote from Nan, which I love when Nan kind of sticks it to Azlin a little bit, where she says, "Stop deliberately unsettling others. Stop acting like some kind of monster or phantom. You're just a person some bad things happen to, and the galaxy is full of bad things that have happened to a whole lot of people. You think you're unique. You think your own personal pain gives you the right to inflict pain on others in perpetuity. And he teases her a bit and says, like, you're a Nile. And she's like, I don't really give a shit. You're kind of an ass.
Yeah, I'm so glad we got Nan in this story because I think she's great. She's been great since the beginning. She's really interesting, but we really get the complexity of her character here and gets this great moment because she's right. She is also, quote unquote, she's on the wrong side. She's done bad things, and she's like, shit. Like, I've seen reality, and you're just living in a fantasy land where you think you're the only one who struggled, and that. It's not worth growing beyond that. And I think that that's his biggest problem, where Nan is definitely motivated by her frustration with how Makempa slighted her and how she left her. Like, Nan is motivated by some of the same things that Azlin is motivated by. But Nan lives in reality, and Azlin simply does not. And that's what makes both of them interesting, and putting them together really interesting, because Nan doesn't like Makempa. They don't like, and for good reason, and is also like, and my 2 feet are on the ground. And she understands that other people live around her too. And yeah, Azlin just doesn't. I think that quote called him out really spectacularly.
Yeah, I retweet your sentiment that getting Nan and Azlin talking to each other was one of my favorite parts of the book. And then all of that together, Reath is the connective tissue between these two, because he's willing to give Azlin a second chance despite what Azlin has been through. He's willing to give Nan a second chance despite the betrayal that Nan has laid upon him in Into the Dark. I did it again.
Oh,
God dang it. God dang it. Get it Into the Light, Into the Dark jar, listener. Put some coins in it. But really, this whole book for the scope of Azlin's journey is, if you're saying you want to help us, if all this means so much to you, show that your fear, like, you can rise above your fear. Like, you think the solution to this is fear. You think the fear keeps you safe. You think the anger keeps you whole. Is that really the truth? Is that just what you've been led to believe by your own inner thought and your inner dialogue for 150 years? Or is there a different way? Is there a different way for you, Nan? Right? So, like, these two characters that are challenged, and I think Azlin, by the end of this, even though he does some dark shit throughout the book, force lightning, ripping apart Drengir, pulling out their hearts, doing some really bad stuff.
It's a little concerning, but also kind of badass at the same time. I have complicated feelings about it.
Yeah, I had a really cool visual in my head of him, like, in the dark forest with the lightning cackling around him. And the plants slithering up towards him. But yeah. Men would literally rather rip the heart out of a Drengir than go to therapy. Unbelievable.
But men would literally cause his own male loneliness epidemic and then murder all his enemies, then go to therapy.
It's actually so based. Is Azlin Rell a cautionary tale about the male loneliness epidemic?
I think Azlin Rell is a cautionary tale about the power of your own mind, derogatory, in parentheses, derogatory, because it got so bad for him that he gouged his own eyes out, and then he didn't let himself have any friends, and he kind of went a little cuckoo bananas because he really zoned in on his perceived most evil enemy, the Nameless. He got a little revenge happy, I feel like, and then he forgot that other people existed.
But I do want to talk about, like, Into the Light as an idea, definitely for Azlin. Towards the end of this book and the climax of this book, he experiences such a profound sense of light within himself that he finally feels like he's walking towards something again. He's like remembering this feeling that he has forgotten for so long. Nothing is scaring him, not the Drengir, not the Nameless. Like, he is just feeling great about life. Why is that? Well, because we have reached the heart of the Wookiee planet of Kashyyyk, the heart and soul, the secret island of the last remaining white Wosher trees in all of existence, which is the Wookiees' deepest, darkest, most privileged secret to their entire planet, to their entire civilization. And we now know about it.
Yeah, which like, oh my freaking God. If you know what? I was right to be a Kashyyyk stan is what my thought is after reading this whole book. Kashyyyk is more interesting than I could have even imagined with these new revelations. And I think it's really interesting that there's like a particular beating heart to Kashyyyk, the connectedness of Kashyyyk, the community of Kashyyyk is within the DNA of the planet itself. And I think that that's a really powerful piece of Wookiee history as we know it, of Kashyyyk as a place, and of this story. And I think the fact that we go to the center of everything, where we're literally at the heart of the Wookiee religion, at the core of the great forest, the closest to the presence of the living force. We're at the I don't want to go as far as to say the nexus, but we are at the strongest point when we are here. So like, ooh.
Yeah. And it's cool that all of our characters end up here, especially like somebody such as Azlin, who is battling with light and dark, and then to be in a place that is so connected to the living force.
Yes.
It just completely removes all of those feelings, despite kind of the funniest part of all of this is that the white Wosher trees are there to hold back the darkness of the thorn seed, which is this dark purple crystal. It's a Sith artifact. It's what Macampa's after. It has the power to turn plant life to the dark side. It's the same thing that turned the Drengir into what they are. It's the face of the crystal has the faces of the Amaxian Station statues on it, carved into it, etched into it. It's all connected, right? So it's this powerful Sith artifact that is so imbued with the dark side. But the power of the Wosher trees are so strong, it's been able to hold it back for eons.
Which, like, that's so metal. Like, that's so metal of these trees, okay? I am the Lorax and I speak for the trees. I'm so serious. But before we like dive into the thorn seed, I kind of want to tangent for a small moment, because I think that it's really incredibly interesting that the thorn seed once again is a purple crystal. We have our various rods in play, right? The Echo Stone, Seasons, Daybreak, whatever, Rod of Ages, yada yada yada, and those are all purple as well. And I think in a world of red and blue, light and dark, yada, yada, there is a significance in choosing purple. One, it's a color that's associated with royalty. Like in our world, like purple is a very luxurious color. But it also represents, in Star Wars, certainly, this certain sense of balance, of neutrality even, perhaps. I mean, we also have the purple lightsaber, which is its own separate thing. But like, purple is a color that exists in the middle. And so for it to be associated with a Sith artifact, something that has a ton of dark side energy, is incredibly interesting to me, because while the stones in our various rods that control the Nameless are doing bad things, to me, those are not fundamentally bad objects. I feel like I'm walking in. I'm walking into like a terrible real world parallel. So like I'm just not gonna.
Sarah is both siding our dark side artifacts.
Yeah. I'm not trying to both sides our dark side artifacts. But I think like it's interesting because the whole thing with the Nameless is that they are manipulated by the rods, which are used by Marchion Ro.
But at the same time, the rods are used to guide the Nameless home by the Ptolemites.
They are neutral. They are fundamentally neutral.
That's what you're saying. Yeah, they
are balanced.
They depend on the intent of the user.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying my point here, because Yes, because they are fundamentally neutral objects. They can guide or they can, manipulate and destroy. And it is the responsibility of the person using that to kind of dictate where that is. Whereas like what the crystal is doing to manipulate plant life, I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned about the use of purple with that. And I don't know, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Although if we like fast forward to the end of the book and our good buddy, we've only talked about just a little bit so far. JK, it's been most of this time. Azlin Rell has the thorn seed, right?
Yes, he takes a sliver of the destroyed thorn seed with him.
What does it mean?
What is he going to do?
What does it mean?
What is he going to do with that?
He has a purple object now. Even though it's a Sith artifact, it still is purple, which is representing the royalty or the luxury and balance or neutrality. And like, I don't know what to make of that, but I feel like it's not nothing. Do you know? I don't know.
Color theory and Star Wars do be going wild. We should study the color purple in Star Wars.
Think about purple again. Mother Anastasia and the Coven. Like, purple is an important color. It's an important color.
Purple is the key to all of this.
Purple is the key to all of this, and so is Azlin Rell. So the fact that he has a little bit of the thorn seed intrigues me.
I gotta say though, the thorn seed, you're hyping up the thorn seed a little bit. It's a dark and dangerous thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mean to be like hyping it up, like, oh my god, the thorn seed is so cool, so high. Like, oh my god, go
everybody
girl.
Should be smoking the thorn seed.
No, I don't think that.
Don't smoke the thorn seed, children.
Like the Sith could embed a thorn seed into the planet, and this is a quote from the book, and within a short amount of time, all the flora in a wide area, even a continent sometimes, would be irrevocably turned to the darkness. And with that, they can manipulate the entire planet, like within the blink of an eye, by ruining the crops, by giving them no food to eat. And when you have taken away people's food source, that causes problems. And famine, starvation, restlessness, right? And discontent. So I think that this is like a really powerfully negative tool, but it's purple. I can't get over the purple of it all. But it is a really, really interesting thing. And the fact that it's directly connected to as you mentioned earlier, like the Amaxine Station statues, these other Sith artifacts, these other Sith statues. What is going on with the Sith? I want that story too.
I feel like the thorn seed is just Star Wars's version of big oil. It's ruining ecosystems. It's used by the Sith, aka the tech billionaires. I'm seeing some parallels here. Again,
the
going
Sith
back to
the tech billionaires specifically.
Going back to the nature versus tech line of thinking.
I was about to say, Brad, you're really reaching with the real life thing here, but then you went back to the nature versus tech thing, and then you drew me back in. I started to believe you again.
In that regard, you think of big oil ruining the environment. Mother Nature.
Right.
What does Mother Nature do to us in times of climate change? Turns against us. Flooding, natural disasters, wildfires, big storms, hurricanes. That is our version of Drengir. It is life. It is the planet turning against us. What does the thorn seed do? Does the same thing. Turns plant life to the dark side. And the plant life eats the tasty meats, aka us. So,
when's the last time you felt like you were eaten by the Drengir?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, today we had a air quality advisory, so that didn't feel great when I walked outside. But I really, we're kind of like joking about like the thorn seed is big oil, but like there really is something to be said about this book and just the idea of like what the Drengir represent, what the Nile's intentions are, what the Sith's intention used to be in destroying crops and planets and bringing populations to the brink of famine, right? there's so many things baked into there and into some of the things that are so critical to Star Wars.
And there's an incredibly indiscriminate nature to that, right? If you ruin the crops of an entire area or an entire continent, that's really indiscriminate to who you are harming. That is punishment to all beings in that land and to the land itself. And I think that's an important piece of this too, when we think about the bigger picture of the High Republic. And I guess we can say this about Star Wars at large to some degree, considering there have been like at least three planet killing stations that have indeed killed planets, which is pretty indiscriminate as well. But just thinking about Marchion Ro's goals and how the Drengir feed and the Sith in general, or the First Order in general, or the Empire in general, and how they choose to go about attaining and maintaining their power. There is often, while we focus in Star Wars on stories that are specific to characters, right? Whether between the good and the bad, Luke and Vader, or Anakin and himself, or Sidious and the Republic, like these are kind of groups characters that are in opposition to one another, or just like Marchion versus the Jedi when it comes to the Nameless. He's kind of targeting at a specific group of people, but the Nameless don't affect all people. So there is a very kind of intentionality in that, whereas affecting a whole thing of crops, the Blight, and the Drengir, it's so indiscriminate. It will get everybody at the end. And what power is there to maintain when everything and everyone is gone? You know, if nobody's there, then like, what are you even doing anymore as a villain? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Marchion's intentions and motivations are really interesting to dive into, especially because he didn't know the Blight was going to be an outcome of his mission. It was an unintended side effect, but a side effect driven from actions that were deeply rooted in going against nature,
chaos.
Going against the Force,
and chaos,
and eating it, you know?
Right. And like the Great Hyperspace Disaster is like one of these acts of just chaos. And his chaos, he thinks that he has control over his own chaos until it comes back and bites him in the ass in the form of the Blight. The Blight's not just affecting Republic worlds, you know? So that's an interesting thing to think about when we think about, I think, villainy at large.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then going back to the tech billionaire example, like what do the tech billionaires do? They wanna exert control on a natural planet. And when you try to exert control, chaos ensues and fights back, right? So it's there's so many interesting things to draw with our world. And here we are talking about farming and crops. I love it.
You know, I really didn't expect to be doing that this episode, to be honest with you.
What a wonderful thing.
Considering in Valiant Val, they are doing farming and crops.
They are. Yeah. There's a lot of...
I know.
Yeah. Phase 3 is for the crops girlies. But not like crop tops. I'm talking corn. I'm talking wheat.
Well,
barley.
Let's go all the way back to Hetzal. All the way back to Hetzal. You know what? I think the High Republic is... I think the High Republic is for the crops girlies. We're having a really good conversation, I can tell.
But speaking of crops and speaking of plants, to all go back to why we're in the heart of the Great Forest here and what this all means. So like the climax of this book being Geode's great sacrifice, which we will dedicate like its own time to here, but just salute emoji real quick before we circle back to Geode in a minute, because he deserves his own segment. Which, by the way, Affy's saying an evil rock, Geode's not going to like the sound of this. And he didn't. He did not.
The Geode comedy was so back in full force in this book that I was just having the time of my fucking life.
It was so good. It was so good. But all of this to say is that we get to the point of Geode sacrificing himself, destroying the Thorn Seed, and now the Drengir experience their into the light moment. Finally understanding there's another form of existence. Quote, one that honored life instead of preying on it. And all of their thorns start to turn into flowers. And it says, how could the Drengir have not seen it before? For this revelation, the sacred truth, they would be eternally grateful. From now on, forever, the Drengir would be creatures of the light. And I'm just like, this was so touching and so beautiful that, again, these creatures who are so violent and have been a thorn in our sides since we started this journey don't have an ending of us extinguishing them, but us transforming them. Much like a character like Azlin Rell, who experiences some form of transformation in this book, although he sort of ends up in the same place by the end because he wants to celebrate with everybody else, but then he kind of gets overcome by that fear again, that like, oh, no matter what I do, the fear always comes back. The image of Kashyyyik's sunshine fading from his mind, swallowing up in the dark, and maybe that's partly because he's carrying a piece of the thorn seed with him, and that's has lingering effects on him. But regardless of where he ends, he has that moment of light. He has that moment of transformation, much like the Drengir. And that's like, I think that's why the book is titled Into the Light. It's about transformation. It's about another form of existence. It's about a different path. It's that your future isn't set in stone. Why destroy when you can transform? And that even applies to our nameless uwu babies, as you and I have theorized for a long time of Trials of the Jedi. What's the end game? It's not killing them. It's understanding them and helping them transform back into what they used to be, which were these beautiful creatures on this beautiful world.
And this is what happens in this book too, is the Drengir are on Kashyyyk, which is as we've discussed quite a lot, incredibly rich in its flora and is the most nature place I can think of, like in the galaxy, right? And so for them to be there, to come home in a real, true sense of the word to themselves and transform into beautiful and gentle creatures and gentle life it's a really beautiful thing. And I think it also just hits home on what we've been talking about for the past 4 years, which is like, this is a series about empathy. It is a series about connecting with others and understanding them better. And I think that is like fully on display through the transformation of the Drengir, through this moment that we get for Azlin. And I don't want to jump yet if you're not ready to jump, but I also want to say, like, we've talked about it a bit through Reath's empathy for others, who like Nan and like Azlin, who others in their crew, the Kashyyyk 12, don't share the same level of optimism about these people. And so I think it's a really powerful message for this to hit home and come home and be the story that we get in this moment here.
I think this conclusion is what really cemented this book as a special thing to me. And I appreciate those stories of hope, and not only transforming the Drengir, but what happens at the Well of Night is also what cures the blight on Kashyyyk. So now we have found the super secret weapon that could cure it all, right? And what are they going to do? They're not going to use it.
Keep it a secret.
Yeah, the magic of the trees is something that should not be shared. We like any great thing, it eventually turns sour. And there's a quote here that says, "No wonder the Wookiees kept it a secret. People will try to understand this. They try to analyze it, and in doing so, they destroy it."
Yeah, it's an interesting observation about understanding versus owning. It's like the essential question of like wildlife photographers or journalists or historians, right? Which is, from how far do you observe the thing that you are studying? How much distance do you keep from it? And if you are to interfere, in a particular way, do you compromise the quality of the thing that you're studying, right? For journalism, it's like their neutrality, right? For wildlife photographers, it's allowing the wildlife to like for their lives to play out, not to have human interference in these remote areas. For historians, it's like how much of your own understanding of the thing or like your own opinion of the thing do you inject into it? What are you studying it from? What kind of sources are you looking at, right? How close do you get to the subject? And in doing that, and in going too far and in getting too close, we run the risk and have seen in our real world the collapse of various cultures and languages and natural wonders and resources, because people from different places or different understandings come in and take ownership of that thing that is not theirs. They want to look into it further, and in doing so, they damage the thing, like archaeology. Sometimes that could happen, right? You're digging a site, and then you do something improper, and now you've harmed an ancient subject. All of these things, I think, are really thoughtful in choosing. Point being, I've just rattled on for a while. Point being, them choosing to keep the secret of the trees and the secret of the planet secret for the Wookiees, while yes, it could be an improvement to the galaxy if they were used in this particular way, it would also destroy the culture of the Wookiees. It would, flatten their life in some ways. And I think that's like a tough line sometimes to figure out what to do or what is too far. But there's integrity in saying, no, this is what this is, and this is for us in this moment. Or yes, let's look into this. Let's dig into this further. Let's see what we can find from this. There's value on both sides of that idea. And I think that this for the Wookiees is a really important thing for them to maintain their world.
Yeah. And the implications too of profit if the secret does get out, right? And I immediately connected this to Planet X, which Planet X is a force nexus. It's a place of strong living force of all these beautiful creatures, these beautiful resources. And we read phase 2 and we know that it was the quest for Planet X. How do we get to this place of rich treasures? You know, we had all the Pathfinders and all the guy, I'm blanking on his name right now. One of the main dudes that goes there. But these explorers,
oh my gosh,
Sunshine Dobbs, is that his name? Yeah. Sunshine Dobbs. But the whole impetus for the sin done to the Nameless is in the name of profit. So if you do the same thing to Kashyyyk, who knows what horrors that will unleash. To take a thing that is so beautiful and so natural. One reason why I don't trust humanity with space exploration is because we will end up. It's the plot of every sci-fi movie ever, which is go to planet in search of answers and in search of the great mysteries of the galaxy and the universe. Find a thing, study it in a lab, and what happens? You get a chest burster coming out of you.
Yeah, this is a classic sci-fi tale.
Thinking
here.
of all the things that go wrong in Prometheus.
Right.
You know,
right.
like let's
let's
touch the eggs. Yeah, let's do that, guys. Sounds smart.
That was the first R-rated movie I ever saw.
Nice.
Thanks, Mom.
It's a good one.
Thanks, Dad.
I think it's aged well, actually. I rewatched it.
I think so too, but I've never actually seen any of the other movies in the series. Fun fact.
You're gonna have to fix that soon. I do want to make one final note though on the magic of the trees. Like the trees don't do this on their own volition. They don't cure the Drengir just on their own. It's an ask from Buryaga and Kelnaka. They ask the trees to do this because the trees no longer have to bear the weight of the thorn seed. They are free. They are transformed in a way as well, right? And so the ask is for you to thus transform something else into the living force, right? And it's not something that has been often asked of the trees, considering they're the only ones left, and because it is such a tall ask. But they grant the request. They radiate this prismatic light, you know, and I love that Reath says to himself, you know, he'd never seen anything that could be accurately called magic. And I just think that's so funny coming from a Jedi.
Yeah, it's really incredible that again, the Wookiees have this particular level of connection with the trees, and I'm gonna like dig into an odds and ends here, but it connects with them asking the trees, and it's this idea that like Wookiees leave if they're gonna go into the Jedi, they leave for the Order much later than other species do. They leave for the Order around 30 standard years of age, right? Which means that they have built up this connection to the trees and to their homeworld than like any other species in the Jedi Order. And the fact that even though they have been away for so long, both Kalnaka and Briaga, that they still have this connection to the trees, that they still can communicate with them and connect with them in this way, I think is really interesting and powerful. And also the trees are cool. I am the Lorax once again.
Yeah, I hadn't made that connection of like why two Wookiee Jedi would be the ones to ask the trees for this favor and to be given it in return. Yeah, because there's such a deep level of empathy and respect.
Right. And
Kalnaka and Buri, like they're connected to their own origins much in a much stronger way.
I'm gonna make a pun. They both have roots, whereas none of the other Jedi have real roots anywhere except maybe Coruscant. And that's such a hustle and bustle sort of place. How can you truly feel at home at times in a place like that?
We really need that Dawn of the Jedi movie. I want to see those roots, baby. Show me them roots.
I want to actually, yes. That's of anything that other than, Rian Johnson's trilogy that like never was really a thing, but is also still a nebulous thing that I think about on the regular.
Slash also kind of died in an EW article today, like very silent death.
No, I know. I'm referencing that specifically. But also it's never really dead. I refuse.
It's never really gone. There you go.
The Dawn of the Jedi movie is the thing that I'm really most interested in seeing because it just seems like it could be weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in a very complimentary sort of nature. Kind of like how the Wookiees asking the trees to transform some plants into nice plants, some mean plants into nice plants is kind of weird.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love when Star Wars is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think you appreciated the full weight of my pun, so I'm going to say it again. Both the Wookiees and the trees have roots.
Everybody clapped. Everybody clapped.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for just taking a second to acknowledge that before you move on.
Well, that was our hour-long answer about what does the title mean, in case you were still following along. But I think it was like really important to start with the Drengir and Azlin, who are two characters, two beings so emboldened with the dark. And like, what does it mean to step into the light? And what does it mean to step into the light in this beautiful place full of life, full of the living force, containing white Wosher trees that are incredibly strong in the force? That moment of transformation, it comes at a cost. And we've already alluded to it once, and here we can dive into it a little bit more. Of Geode, only pebbles remained.
Oh my God. Okay. You finished this book before me. And so here I am listening to the book, doing my puzzle to set the scene. And I hear Geode, he's running into the center. And I said, is Claudia about to kill Geode? And I sent this like selfie of pain on my face. And then 2 seconds later, I was like, she just killed Geode. I can't believe she would do this to me. I was and am so sad about, I mean, did Geode go out in the absolute most metal way possible? Was it like the coolest thing he could ever have done as a sentient rock sort of being? Yeah. Actually, yeah. Is the image in my mind of him breaking into a million little pebbles the worst thing? Is it even worse than like some of my faves, Orla Journey, dying in the Fallen Star? Is it even worse than Stellan Geos at the bottom of the ocean? Kinda, yeah. Like, what the what?
This is an all-time heartbreak.
Yes.
This is it.
And the people who don't get it, I'm so sorry you do not get it. But this devastation is important to me, and it's real. And Geode is the love of my life. Okay, this is so devastating.
It really is. And the fact that we haven't really seen him move ever. He just always appears. He just is. Right. And there's even one point where when they enter the Wosher tree area, Azlin says he sensed like a high silvery sound beyond the frequency detected by human ears, and he believes it to be Geode's magnetism slowly moving him forward. So that started to like set this up a little bit.
That's when I was like, oh no.
Yeah. I was like, he moving. He going
on the move. Yeah.
So to see him during all of this, basically launching himself towards the Thorn Seed and heating to super conductivity, which like at first Leox was like, he's heating to super conductivity. And I was like, haha, that's funny. Like, that's so silly. And then he exploded and I was like, oh wait, no, not silly. Like this wasn't like a laughing matter, super conductivity, silly word moment. This was like high stakes. And I was very sad.
Yeah, I think it was really powerful of Claudia to frame it in this way, where Geode is that's just the first time we see evidence or hear evidence of him moving, because it gives such a weight to his point of view. He's always been the butt of the joke, and I think the jokes are all written incredibly well, but he's also a really kind of interesting character, even though we don't hear from him. We know a certain bit about him and his capability as a navigator, that he loves to party, that he's a great member of the team. Like, they love him. The team loves him, and us as fans love him too. So to kind of get this moment that we don't hear from him, or it's like not a point of view, but like to know that he is moving, I think is a big moment for him. And then just the sentence of Geode, only pebbles remained.
I have no words.
Yeah. It's really sad. And so we can talk about the aftermath a little bit. Like, Affy and Leox go looking for and find Geode's Heartstone, which is kind of the key thing that's left behind when a Vintian dies. And it's very small. They're wearing it on a pendant that they share. And there is the hope. Did you know that the Vintians regenerate? Fuck yeah, first of all. Fuck yeah. But they don't know or maybe don't think that that's possible for him. And I thought of Groot when he becomes baby Groot.
Oh my gosh, wait, that's such a good parallel. Because he blows himself up in the first movie, right? Or to protect them.
I think so.
He goes around them, and when the ship crashes, that's what happens. He
like sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
And then he becomes
baby
Groot. But then he becomes teenage Groot again. He grows back. So like, it makes me feel like there's hope for Geode.
Yeah.
And also what a beautiful thing it would be if he does regenerate, and Affy and Leox have been caring for his Hearthstone all this time with that hope. I think there's a beauty in that hope, even though they hold a funeral for him. Because of course, if he regenerates, he's not going to be the exact same Geode. He's going to be Geode 2.0 in that case. But I love how they talk about. I love it how they talk about the Vintians. The Vintians are so interesting. More rocks in Star Wars, please. Leox says the Vintians erode as they age, growing smaller and smaller over time. The goal is to someday become small enough to fit in on a beach, to help create the shoreline anew for generations to come. What the fuck, Claudia? This is so good. Like, this is ridiculous. And when they suffer untimely deaths, well, we scatter them here. This is where they forever will feel both the coolness of the waves and the warmth of the sun. This is where they will watch daybreak and nightfall. For Vintians, the shoreline is paradise. This is their heaven. Like, what a beautifully sad thing. Like, what a lovely thing. And also, like, earlier in the book, there's a great joke, but it's also interesting. It says, for Vintians, the mountains were aspirational. Geode stared out onto the snow caps, you know?
Yeah.
And I also thought it's hilarious. It's a hilarious joke, but it's also incredibly interesting. This is so interesting.
Yeah, he had a soft spot for rocks. Mountain ranges touched him deeply. Like, but also I think that is like, it is a joke, but it is setting up this beautiful moment at the end of like, we talked about it with Azlin, we talked about it with the Drengir transformation.
Yeah.
One death, one end is just a beginning, you know?
Also talking about oceans for a second, like Elzar sees the Force as an endless ocean, you know, that can sometimes be overwhelming. And so we've got oceans in, and also like Selengios is at the bottom of one. We also find Buryaga in one, you know, like this whole situation. But like we've been here before. But a lot of it has been with negative things that have happened in or around oceans. And so to reframe the shoreline like this, and especially for Geode and Vintians, we didn't know any of this, you know, prior to this book, prior to this story. And even despite that, just this description, this, you know, Leox, I guess, knows all the Vintian lore and knows all about the Vintians, is such a beautiful thing. But of course, like you can't leave it without the joke, because Claudia also says the ship seems so quiet without Geode here.
I ugly laughed at that. I was like crying, and then I ugly laughed, and I was like, why do you make me sob and then cry?
Like the jokes never end. That's objectively hilarious. He's a rock who doesn't speak. What a legend. But like, yeah, I think the story of Geode as this kind of quiet force who is the butt of the joke oftentimes to the reader, but is also a really valuable member to the vessel crew and someone they love and care for, and is ultimately someone who makes a really powerful sacrifice that I think in some ways sets everything into motion for the end of this story, even though this is just part of the end of the story. Like it's this win that allows for further wins in the future. And Leox says, he taught me that we can both find both friendship and the living force in places we might never expect. And that's why our minds and our hearts must always be open. Did he kind of just suggest that meeting Geode taught him the thesis of the entire High Republic?
And also to love and accept those you may not understand.
Literally, exactly. Yeah.
Geode doesn't have to speak for you to care about him. And I think your point too about how this is a small victory. There's this great quote from Reath, or it's a thought that he's having, but it says, "We saved one world. When we're fighting on a near galactic scale, it's easy to think of one planet as something small, but it's not. It's an entire population, an entire culture, primeval forests, including one wiser and more powerful in the Force than the Jedi Council, even the Jedi Council. Just one planet means something. It means everything." And I think of this idea of like Geode had such a great sacrifice and is just a tiny heartstone. No one will ever realize, if they were to look at that heartstone, what that heartstone did. You know, like how these small things, these small beings, even a hobbit, you know, like I love the smallest of beings can change the course of the future. It's one of my favorite quotes from that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Small wins matter. Small wins that can feel dwarfed by the scale of the enemy, right? Nemec's manifesto, right? It's these small things that turn the tide. So this battle on Kashyyyk matters. The illusion that it has to be something even much larger in order to matter is false.
Yeah, and I think that Reath's quote as well really just highlights the difference between the dark and the light, because he is saying, just in general, that everyone matters, that every life matters, that saving people is worth my time. Even if not everything is saved, saving one person is worth my time. Whereas, as we talked about earlier, like the indiscriminate nature of villainy, of chaos, of destruction, in the ways that the Nile and Marchion have gone about it throughout this story. They don't care about a particular planet or multiple planets or the people on them. They just want to conquer, and they just want to stoke fear and chaos into everybody.
Totally. And we just have to remain anchored around the ones we love and the ones that we trust in. Just believe in being a good person. That's the best you can do each and every day, you know? And I think somebody who truly embodies all of those values that we've talked about is Reath Silas. And I think Reath is probably, we've saved the best for last, truly, because I think you and I can both agree Reath Silas is probably one of the best Star Wars characters of all time.
Oh God, I loved him from the moment he hit the page. I just absolutely loved him from the moment he hit the page.
Excellent.
And so
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just an all-timer. And so we're gonna wrap up our conversation today by talking about Reath. And I think to start, some interactions that he has with Amadeo. Him and Amadeo really hit it off in Tears of the Nameless. Amadeo was a character that you and I were like, okay, I'll take him. Seems cool.
Yeah, but he was the original character of Tales of Light and Life, and we were like,
right,
what's going on with this guy?
Yeah,
and
he was a newbie.
Lovely, yeah, and he's become this lovely addition to the High Republic that we've really come to love and adore.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's been really great to see the way that they interact with each other. They each bring something different to problem solving, which is how we even got to Tollus and the Ptolemites, right? And so like putting the brain power of the many together. Amadeo has this moment in the book where he is fighting the Drengir on Kashyyyk and he gets injured and he's feeling really down about it. And Reath tells him, one of the most insidious illusions of war is that the winner of any encounter, small or large, was in some critical way superior. It leads to the conflation of might and right. In truth, chance always plays a factor. Often that's the biggest factor. Sometimes the strong fall and the weak stand, and sometimes you just run into the wrong Drengir first thing. And it was exactly what Amadeo needed to hear in this moment, but it was a moment where he kind of has this recognition that like Reath is proving he has the wisdom and strength of a Jedi Master, despite being so young in his years. And I thought that was just really great to have somebody who they're kind of in the same level age-wise, and it's admiration of this guy who he's had the honor of calling a friend and is leading these missions for them and helping them to really peel back the layers on the Nameless problem and solve it together. And Reath is not somebody who gatekeeps the solutions or says like my way or the highway. He is somebody that will lead and listen and take charge, not for the sake of taking charge, but to inspire others.
Yeah, he's like the best kind of leader. And it's I don't know if it's what I expected from him when we first met him and how incredibly reluctant he was to go on adventure and to venture outside of his confines. But I think it's the confines of the Jedi Archive that also teach him some of the strengths of good leadership by, in his young life, having a passion for and diving into the books and the texts and the history and trying to have a greater understanding of the world around him, connecting with Comac, who is a historian and folklorist, somebody's also looking through the world through these sorts of lenses. And then for him to go out into the world, to go on an adventure that changed so much for him, to go on subsequent adventures, and now to end up here where, as you said, he's not gatekeeping the answers. And I think that's his greatest strength, other than like listening. It's listening and understanding and being open with others around him. And it's the quality of a good leader that allows every member of the team to reach their biggest potential, to do the thing that they excel in, and to respect them and to value them enough and to trust them enough to go and be the person that you think that they are as the leader. And I think Reath is doing that throughout this story. In the quote that you mentioned with Amadeo, yeah, you're right. Him and Amadeo are around the same age, but they kind of have different life experiences and they respect one another. Also, with the fact that he's leading a team of 12, and he is, if we look at the makeup of this team,
the Luminous 12, by the way, or the Kashyyyk 12. Sorry, Forget the Luminous 9. We don't need the Luminous 9 when we have the Kashyyyk 12.
Yeah, the Luminous 9 aren't even going to Kashyyyk. They're going to Planet X. Different vibes. Different thing entirely.
I know. Less fun. But
many members of this team are older and more just experienced in life than Reath, including
Kelnaka and Buryaga, certainly. Wookiees. Very old.
Yeah, Kelnaka, Buryaga, Azlin, also real old guy. Dez is older than him. Leox is older than him. Geode is older than him. His contemporaries in this group are Afi, Amadeo, and Nan, and Avon. And that's like less than half of them.
And so, Comax also, I don't know if you mentioned Comac. Comac also older.
I'm sorry.
But Comac is in a position also where he's sort of feeling like the apprentice now to Reath, because that's how much Reath has grown.
Right. And Comac stepped away for his own reasons. And so to come back to a changed Reath and to learn from him, I think is a gift and a challenge all in itself. But a good one.
He even jokes with Reath, "Hey, are you any chance you're looking for an apprentice?" Like,
I thought
that's how
so
much he respects Reath. Like, it's a joke, but like, are you looking for an apprentice? But they have this great moment at the end where they talk about forgiveness, and it's not a linear path. It can't be rushed. We've traveled this path together, but it's not the end. We keep on moving forward.
Yeah, and I think as Reath puts together the text and the practice, he's doing some praxis, if you will, in leadership of just exemplifying strong leadership. And I think that, again, I really just think about the first page of Out of the Dark, Into the Dark, Out of the Shadows is a whole other book.
You just start mixing Imagine titles.
No, they've been doing this the whole time to us. It's really mean. Path of Deceit, Path of Vengeance, Quest. They did that on purpose in Phase 2. That was crazy.
Path of the Hidden Vengeance, City, Light
of Deceit.
Of Deceit.
Yeah. Anyway.
Tears.
Anyway. I think about that first page of Into the Dark, and just like him being so, and this is where I fell in love with him, because he would just rather be in the archives. And of all the characters who have gone on journeys of growth and transformation and change, there are a handful that I'm really, really drawn to. And I think Reath is at the top of that list for me, because the thing above all other things that he gains over his story into leadership in order to be a good leader is confidence that he can do it. And maybe that sounds silly, but he was so not having it, at the start of Into the Dark with the sense of adventure. And he worked through it, but it was not his beat. It was not where he wanted to be. And over this time, he has gained the confidence to lead this team, to know what the right answer is, to stick to his guns, and like about the nameless and what's there, and also to stand up for empathy and to stand up for others like Nan and Azlin, who have been marginalized by the people around him who don't believe them as people. And I think his ability to just look beyond the assumptions of them and get to the heart of who they are is and believe in them too is a really powerful thing. Anyway, this is just Sarah's on her soapbox about how much she loves Reath Silas. If I could right now, I would give him a hug and tell him that he's doing a great job, and give him a little pat on the head and say, "Call me if you need me. I'm here for you, bestie."
But I would say his faith in his friends is his strength.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Palpatine / the dark side would probably call that a weakness. Azlin might think that's a weakness, but like no matter how much Azlin might say that or indicate it, Reath constantly pushes back and hits that breaking point we mentioned earlier of like, dude, you're always going to be alone if you don't step into the light. And this mission doesn't work with anybody else leading it except for Reath. I believe.
I agree.
It falls apart without Reath. He is the right person for the job because of all the things that you mentioned, and he takes everybody's strengths and understands them on a deep level and respects them despite whatever viewpoints they might have. Like, and there's a lot of moments in here where like he's so annoyed with Nan and like, will she, won't she, of like, when is she going to turn her back on us again? Like she did, like he's been backstabbed once, like fool me twice, shame on me.
Right.
And it never comes. But like the fact that he is still not standing over her shoulder the entire time, he inspires confidence in her to find a new path as well. And she transforms by the end of the book as well to realize that she can't believe in the Nile anymore. And she sees it as Marcion Rowe's vanity project. So instead she'll join the Bind Guild and help with the vessel crew. And so Reath inspires transformation in everybody around him. He is the light.
Yeah. Am I going to cry about how the tears are in my eyes, chat?
The Tears of the Sarah.
The Tears of
written
the Sarah,
by George Mann.
But like I think about all the people around him, right? And Affy has gone on a growth journey with the Bind Guild now as a leader and doing something bigger and better. Des is now returned from his Barash vow, kind of with more confidence and more understanding of what he needs to do going forward. Amadeo has gone on a journey of confidence, period. Like that's been his story. Coming into his own is to believe in himself, really. Nan has come into herself and stated her truth and taken a different path. And like, that's a huge step for her to make. And her joining the Bind Guild, I think is like, I love this end for her. It's really a beginning for her, but I love this end for her within the context of this High Republic story, because I thought she was so complex and interesting in Into the Dark. And like Azlin here, I'm rooting for her. I'm really rooting for her. And I feel like my rooting for her was truly justified here. Burry has gone on a journey and become stronger and more empathetic and has gone through so much and has seen so much darkness in his time alone. But he is also an empath. He's someone that is just important to be there. And then Avon, right? Avon Starros has gone on a huge journey. She's grown up. She's gone from tween to teen. And in doing that, she has become even smarter and more capable and more knowing about herself and the world around her, and is setting boundaries. And God, I love Avon. Like, I know we're not talking about her too much in the context of this book, especially as compared to other stories she's been in, even though she's in this book and is really in this book. But like, her growth into herself and into being this like incredibly capable young woman, and then knowing where she ends up, spoilers, no spoilers, but Wayseeker, like we do get more information about how she lived her life beyond the High Republic story. Like I'm so proud of all of these young people, including Reath, who have gone on journeys alongside one another and independently, and have come out of those things stronger, more capable, more confident, and better people. I'm really proud of all my YA characters. I really am. It's like, yeah. And this is what YA is all about, of course. Like, but like, what
it's
a beautiful
transformation,
journey.
right?
It's transformation.
It's stepping out your door into the world, and discovering who you are. Whereas those middle grade books are all about like the fundamentals.
Yeah, and the question in the middle grade books is often, who are you among your peers? And then the question of YA books is often, who are you in the world? You know, as you move into young adulthood. And I just feel this deep sense of pride for all of these young adult characters that we've followed over various stories. Yeah, I'm like really emotional about this. We all grow up, you know, and I think we all remember the time when we were less confident than we are now. You know, you and I we're still young adults in the sense that we are baby steps into our adult life compared to people who have been living in their adult life decades longer than we have, right? And we can remember when we were teens and didn't know what the world looked like. But we also, in certain ways, lack the confidence that we see in others and go, man, I really want that. I really want that particular quality in my peer and somebody around me, you know? And I know we'll look back at ourselves then and be like, wow, we'll look back at ourselves in 20 years and be like, wow, we've come so far. Look at all we've accomplished personally and in our lives. And And like, so I find myself, even though I read less YA, I'm like mostly reading YA within the context of Star Wars, still really walking alongside these YA characters as they step into the world, gain confidence, become better, and more knowledgeable, because I'm still doing that myself. I don't know. That was rambly. I am on the brink of tears. You can put a coin in your Sarah Kai's jar. Because yeah, the ramble is for me to stave them off. It's fine.
I'm inching ever closer to making my mortgage payment for August. Thank you. I'm almost there. Another coin in the jar.
Happy to help.
No, but you're so right though, and I think that's the beautiful thing about these books is we have been on that journey, and we've even learned about ourselves in the process, and also never forgetting where you came from. And I think maybe one final note here on Reath is his relationship with Des, who we said made a great triumphant return here, and he took the brash vow after Into the Dark. He went to seek ultimate communion with the Force, and he came back, and his connection with Reath is Jorah Malley. They both were apprentices to Jorah. That's the one bond that they share. And it's also the one thing that connects them to their former life before all of this, before everything went bad. And just remembering where we came from, like acknowledging that, like, yes, we have grown. Yes, we have learned new things. Like, yes, we are different people, but never forgetting your roots. You know, like we talked about the roots, the tree pun, right?
She's back.
And there's this great quote, which is on the back of the book as well. And it's Reath asking Des, which is the greater burden, memories of what's been lost or the tragedy of forgetting? And Des says, memories, always memories. And Reath asks him if he still lives with the memories from the Amaxine station, and says, like, you know, aren't you burdened by those? And Des says, you know, they always will. I've just learned to carry the weight. You know, and I thought this was a beautiful exchange, because they've been through so much. They've lost so much. They've been picked apart by the world. They, you know, yet they still stand. I feel like I'm just like word vomiting philosophy gobbledygook, but like hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, but that's kind of where we're at, I feel like, because we're just talking broadly about Reath's journey and who he is in this book, and so that's kind of what it's all about. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, put it all together, we get something.
He's never been complacent, is what I'm trying to say. He has always pushed for more. There's always more. He's never stopped, you know, and
we've talked about that with relation to Azlin as well. He's always choosing to go back. Like in Tears of the Nameless, like he could have stopped talking to Azlin at any point. In fact, he was encouraged to stop talking to Azlin, but he would still go back and seek that understanding and seek that empathy with him, and try and push him a little bit further, and to push Azlin and be like, you can be this. I know who you are somewhere in there, and you can be this person if you work towards it. And I think that is also a really strong point of who he is, as we've discussed, you know, throughout this episode.
Totally. I love Reath. I'm happy he was prominently featured in not only this book, but all of Phase 3. Being, you know, getting like 2 Reath focused books in a row was a pleasure.
It's like candy for me. I really do love him.
And then he's one of the Luminous 9 going to Planet X.
And yet there's more. Because I'm thinking about, I don't want to spoil it here, because like this is not that book, but like there is a scene in that book that I am thinking about still. So I look forward to discussing it.
We've talked about quite a bit here.
Yeah.
And wait, there's more.
Of course.
Because we have our odds and ends, which are things that we somehow didn't get to in the 2 hours we yapped. And now we're making space. We're creating space for them here.
Yeah.
So rapid fire fashion, kick us off with some of yours.
Just a note that I had made is that 1/3 of the council had died since the beginning of the Nile conflict. And that's 4 people. That's a feels problem. Like a lot. But also, like, to say 1/3 of the council, that feels gigantic. And it is gigantic, because every one of those lives is important. But like, wow. Something I just made a note of.
Yeah, that is quite a bit. My less serious odds and ends is Nan traveling to Coruscant.
Oh yeah.
And there's a mention of a red-billed Kashyyykian watching a current events debate shown on her datapad without a headset. Grievously rude, but nobody could be bothered to confront her about it. And I really love the representation of people not wearing headphones in public. What are we doing as a society? Like headphones, go buy them at Walgreens. They're like $5. Like, just, I can't.
Brad doesn't believe there should be noise in society.
All decorum is lost. No one wants to hear your phone call. No one wants to hear your music. I can't go to the beach and listen to the waves. I can't. You know why? Because you got some kids playing their tunes.
I'm kids playing tunes.
I want to connect with nature, goddammit.
Let the kids play their tunes at the beach, okay? That is an appropriate place to play tunes, okay? But I mean, I do agree with, like, if you're walking around on speakerphone, or if you're like on Delta, or if you're on American and they're like, we have a quiet cabin policy, so yada yada yada, and then the person next to you is like watching their downloaded media on their phone on out loud. I get it. We don't.
That's
all
wild
have to hear
too, because they give you
episodes.
free headphones on the flight.
Well, yeah, the flight attendant would probably catch you at that point and be like, hello, I'm here to fix this problem, because it is a problem. Anyway, I am once again back. I'm just going to change it. We're going to move on. I am once again back to talk about one of my top favorite things in Star Wars, which is Institutes of Higher Learning. And actually what caught me on this particular situation was not the place, which is the Galactic Academy of Sciences, but the professor's name, which is written as Hasman Cross, okay? Hasman Cross. If you know my last name, then you know my last name. And if you don't, then you don't. But if you do, I went, wait a second, how is that spelled? It is not spelled like my last name, but it's not dissimilar. And I'm not saying Claudia did it for me, because she obviously did it, because it's not even kind of similar like that. But I feel like it's for me. So shout out to Professor Hasman Cross, who is Avon's professor. Thank you.
Spoiler alert, Sarah's full legal name is Sarah Galactic Academy of Sciences.
Yeah, Sarah Galactic Academy of Sciences, Hasman Cross.
Yes. Which, speaking of Avon, like, while we're here, by the way, Hasman Cross is an ass, first off.
I mean, yeah, we're shouting out Professor Cross, but like, we're not.
Yeah, like, hit the road, Jack. Because you mentioned the way that the book and this journey makes all these characters more confident coming out. Avon definitely, for sure, because Hasman Cross has not given her anything, right? Like, she's an avid learner. She's smart. She's diligent in her work. She could probably solve the blight problem faster than anybody else, and he won't give her the light of day. But I do appreciate Avon breaking out of that zone and actually just doing her science thing on Kashyyyk, completely unimpeded.
Breaking out of her zone and also setting boundaries with her mom, and just like really owning who she is. I just have the utmost respect for her.
Absolutely.
My last one here, because I said one of my ones earlier, is I went, Canary mention. Hold up. Canary mention. The Circa Corporation is there, and they're looking to establish gas mines.
We know there are big mining pits in Andor on Canary.
We do indeed.
Is this the start of a centuries-long excavation project of Canary? Is this where it all begins?
Dare I say yes? Dare I say?
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, I'm like, dang, maybe the Drengir should have stayed there. Because capitalism, bad. Strip mining, bad. But on the other hand, if the Drengir stay, we don't get Kashyyykian Andor.
I know.
And that's a really complicated situation for everybody.
The butterfly effect is very interesting here.
If not for Dr. Macampa, Kashyyykian Andor never blows up the Death Star. Because she lures the Drengir off of Canary to Kashyyyk.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Let that sink in.
Much to think about. Okay, what's your next one?
My next one is the Crash journey, which is mentioned by Azlin. Crash journey spelled Creche, and it's like some sort of thing that Padawans used to do where they would like go to a planet and explore it and so on and so forth. But Amadeo mentions that he took one to Crate with his master.
Yeah.
He said there were beautiful crystal white foxes there. He begged to bring one back to Coruscant as a pet, but the Crash keeper nurse, Master Yenlit Elio, had told all the children that the fox would be happier in his own home with his own friends. Azlin had always meant to get around to seeing one of those foxes someday. Oh, this was Aslan's Crash journey to
yes.
With Arkhov to Crate. And I thought that was one, Last Jedi, hell yeah. Two, just the idea of wanting to take a creature off of its planet and wanting to do that and being told not to do that. I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just making an observation.
Mm-hmm.
Amadeo's Crash journey, though, was to Jakku.
I love it when we bring a little sequel planet back in, loop it back in. You know?
He was just like, it's boring and it's a desert.
It's
Preach.
sand.
Preach.
Or sand.
Let's stop going there.
Yeah. Not that exciting. Do you have any more? Is that it?
I do have one more. It's a Last Jedi one, too. It's a Last Jedi connection.
Let's do it.
It says Des. So Des, he's talking about like what he learned in his Barrage Vow journey, and he realized the flaw in the Jedi and himself was hubris.
Hubris.
Quote, it was impossible for anyone to wield the Force without running the risk of confusing the Force's power and wisdom for their own. End quote. And that was giving, if the light die, to believe that if the Jedi die, the light dies is vanity. Hubris. We've only ever heard hubris from Luke Skywalker's mouth about the Jedi Order. So I just feel like Des is a trailblazer in a sense, you know?
The Jedi are romanticized, deified, but if you strip away the myth and look at their deeds, the legacy of the Jedi is failure, hypocrisy, hubris.
Did Luke technically take the Barrage Vow without calling it the Barrage Vow? It's interesting that Des takes it and realizes the Jedi's hubris, and Luke isolates and comes to the same realization. And I just find that fascinating.
You know, but they are connected with the Force. They're still connected with the Force itself.
True, because he does cut himself off. But when does he cut himself off? Does he take the Barrage Vow and eventually is just like, I can't do it? A lot of questions.
Much to think about.
That was all I had, though, for my odds and ends.
Me too.
Which I think brings us to the end of this discussion here about Into the Light. We hope you enjoyed our conversation, listener, and all the different paths that it took throughout the last 2-ish hours. And Sarah, maybe all the rambling along the way was to just prolong this episode so we don't have to say, hey, we finished all the YA books in the High Republic forever.
You know what? I think that's why I've been avoiding this conversation so much, like subconsciously, because I've just been, honestly, like so afraid. Get ready for our trials conversation, guys. I'm so afraid to close this chapter and like call it truly done. I like had a breakdown finishing all 3 of these final phase 3, wave 3 books. What a gift it has been to have been on this journey with these characters, with these authors, and to see the conclusion of so many of our beloved YA characters' journeys in this story and in Trials, which we'll talk about on the podcast very soon. I feel a lot of gratitude towards it all.
Yeah, I'm sad that the journey is over, but I'm happy that we have one more episode to go and to talk through kind of all the emotions of it ending and the friends we made along the way. Thank you, everybody. We hope you enjoyed Into the Light as much as we did. And we hope you stay tuned for our discussion on Trials of the Jedi, which will be our final High Republic discussion. Valiant Vow is on our podcast feed right now, so go check that out if you haven't already. Stay tuned for more from us. Follow us on our socials to get all those updates and subscribe to our podcast feed so you get the latest episodes. So stay tuned.
We also have to express our great gratitude to our patrons who really, we have to pay web hosting fees or in need of new equipment. It is our Patreon funds that help us to keep the lights on and make the podcast a little bit better sounding. So thank you so much to the folks that support us, including Abigail, Amy, Andy, Ben, Brian, Cheryl, Clay, David, Emma, Jennifer, Josephine, Katie, Nice Friend, Krista, Ian, Logan, Lucy, Lindsay, Matthew, Nicole, Rob, Ruth, Santa, Sky Talker, Soulcatcher, Travis, and Viglyph. We are really, really grateful for your support. And you're not our only supporters. Thank you to every single person who takes the time to listen to our conversations, to join in our conversations. If you've ever met us in person and said hello and we just gushed about the High Republic for a few minutes, wow, I'm really in my I'm clearly really in my feels right now. I just have so much gratitude, for the conversation that's sparked up around the High Republic and around Egg Talk and all that jazz. So, thank you for joining us on this journey, whether this be your first High Republic episode or your 24th or however many billion we've done at this point. Stay hydrated, stay healthy. It's hot out, so make sure that you are taking care of yourself.
And a quick note too, Sarah, you mentioned Egg Talk. We didn't have a lot of that today, but listener, you're going to want to listen to the next episode because we will be delivering the eggiest of all talks to ever egg. So get ready, buckle up.
It's like we are throwing a party and we're only talking about eggs, and every single dish that we've laid out for this party is egg-based.
Is eggs. Yes. So get ready. We are saving the best for last, and we can't wait to talk about Trials of the Jedi very, very soon. So thank you all once again, and until next time, may the Force be with you always.